Hey everyone, I'm Joe.
And I'm Jen.
We're co-hosts of Murder Made Fiction, a podcast that looks at fictionalized adaptations of true crime.
That's Murder Made Fiction wherever you get your podcasts.
And until then, let's leave the murder on the screen.
There are places where the world's most gruesome crimes have led to years, decades, and sometimes even centuries of supernatural activity. The victims seemingly reaching out from beyond the grave for justice. Those locations are in Creepy Places, a true crime podcast. And I am your host, John Grills. Join me in these creepy places if you dare, as we dive deep into the epicenter of true terror.
Carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's our sporadic queer horror television roundup, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and yeah, we are covering Pretty Little Liars Original Sin Season 2, aka Pretty Little Liars Summer School.
Oh my god. They're gonna keep changing these titles every fucking year, and it's just like, how do people find the show?
Well, it's still like, okay, so when I'm watching it on my Max app, it still says Pretty Little Liars Original Sin as like the show name. But yeah, anyway, in case you haven't figured out, these Micro Queers are just like whenever there's something queer that we're not covering in the main feed of the Patreon, like we just use that as an excuse to cover these things.
Sure. Anything that we're already sort of casually watching in our own lives, if we're both sort of caught up, then we'll say, all right, well, let's throw something out. So with that said, Trace, I covered all of season 1 with Terry from Gaily Dreadful, and I had some pretty big issues, but I'm curious, how did you feel about the show in its first season?
I think I was warmer on the show than you were. I mean, okay. Here's the thing. I don't think this show is... I honestly can't even give you an opinion. No, because here's the thing. Sometimes I think it's like genuinely good, clever, right, suspenseful, scary, like witty. Like the writing is sometimes really good. But then there are other times where I'm like, oh, wow, this is like not good. So it's like, yes. I go back and forth so much. And like, but it's like a thing where as soon as I see something that I'm like, oh, this is really bad, then immediately after that, the next scene, there's something else. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. And so
it's a fucking roller coaster.
It really is. So here's the thing. Like, I think overall, this is like the ultimate like B- show.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like season 1 quite. I think I preferred season 1 of the show to season 2 overall, if only because I do think it leaned more into the horrorness of it.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But I did like a lot of, well, some of the character growth we had in season 2. Like, I actually think a lot of the girls are really good in the show. Just, they're like, I mean, for me, the MVPs of the season are Zaria, who plays Farron, and Bailey Madison, who plays Imogen. But I mean, I think they're all good, but some of them just have scraps to work with this season.
Oh boy. Yeah. Folks who read my coverage know that I had some pretty fucking huge issues with Tabby, who is played by Chandler Kinney. The issue is not the actor, though. Like, it's 100% the writing and what they tried to do with that character, which is basically they wanted to Randy her, or I guess Jasmine Savoy Brown her.
Yeah.
But, like, that character was so fucking grating in season 1 that there were a bunch of episodes where I wanted to smash my computer. Like, it was basically her and then that lead character from Stephen Graham Jones'
Oh, my heart is a chainsaw.
Yeah, where I was just like, if these characters don't stop making fucking meta-textual references, I'm going to kill someone. So yeah. I was really happy that they seemingly got the message mostly in season 2, where they dialed Tabby back. But yeah, I agree with you. It's so hit and miss that I'm having those up and down reactions in most of these episodes where I'll think, oh, that was fun, or I really like that moment. I think a big part of the problem is that writing is really inconsistent, but also there's just too many characters on the show.
Okay, so here's the thing. So like I I watched season 1 like back when it aired, just like you. And I mean, what it's been, I want to say 2 years since the show went off the air.
No, it was last year.
Oh my God, Joe. Okay, I had forgotten so much. I forgot there were 5 liars. I thought there were only 4. And just to go back to the overall quality and this kind of roller coaster we're talking about, none of the bad stuff was ever like show ruining, where I was like, oh, I can't watch the show anymore because it's so bad. It honestly kind of became comedy for me, where like my husband and I would just watch it and we would be laughing sometimes at the show and sometimes with the show. Like it just depended on what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, you could turn it into a drinking game if you wanted to, where it's like every time we have either a cringy line. This season, it's every time we're saying fucking spooky spaghetti, or in the finale, every time we say the word proxy.
Oh my God, the spooky spaghetti. Okay, so let's just so we divided this our outline out. We're gonna go by the characters in their plot lines. Yes. Because so we have all the girls, and they have also boyfriends, and then there's also like family. These poor mother actresses who have nothing to do. So
okay, so wait. So here's what people need to know about season 1. So there's 5 liars. They live in the small town of Millwood, and in season 1 they were being stalked by A, who was a giant masked man who was going around killing a bunch of people, and they had to figure out why. They realized that they were all sort of connected, but it mostly comes together around Imogen and this baby plot. She is pregnant because she was raped at a frat party, as was Tabby. And so it all comes to a head where we reveal who A is, and we send him away, kind of, because of course the first episode back is like, hey, here's what you missed last time on Pretty Little Liars.
Well, and again, if you haven't seen season 1, or you're like, oh, I never watched the original series, like, do I have to watch that to get into this? No, there are like Easter egg references to the original series, but there is nothing is bearing on the plot. You'll even like miss the references, and it doesn't matter. So this is pretty much a mostly standalone series of television.
Agreed. Yeah. Like, I think I watched 1 episode of Pretty Little Liars, and I was fine to jump into season 1. And then I, like you, had forgotten most of season 1 of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. And when I sat down to watch it, I was like, I hope they give me a recap. And then I realized, oh, that first episode is giving us most of what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also, like, I mean, like, the original show, which I watched, I want to say 6 of the 7 seasons of, or maybe 5.5. I think I made it halfway through season 5 before I stopped. But it actually was like it leaned into horror a lot. Like there's an entire episode that is a psycho homage. They do a terror train thing. Like I wouldn't call it a horror show, but it very much wore its horror influences on its sleeves. Whereas I think season 1 of Original Sin, like I would call that a horror show. Season 2, I would call more, it kind of harkened back to the original show for me, where it was more of a teen soap opera with horror elements, but we are still killing people here, so.
We are. They're just often the peripheral characters. And I will say that's one of my criticisms of season 2. I don't necessarily want us to kill one of these liars, but when I thought that we were killing Kelly, who's the religious girl played by Mallory Bechtel, I thought, I like this actor, but if it means that we kill someone so everybody else gets more screen time, I might be okay with it.
I was actually really upset with how separate she was from the liars for most of the season. Like,
100%.
I like this Kelly. Well, I liked this Kelly character. I don't know how anyone comes back from what she did at that Redemption House thing, which I think that's the best episode of the season for me, is that episode.
Okay. Yeah.
But, I mean, because it reminded me of in Chucky, you know, when Lexi like mocked Jake's dad by like dressing up as his corpse for Halloween. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. But, you know, we came around on Lexi, and I would like to come around on Kelly, but it's kind of just like I'm sorry, guys, it's okay. That's the kind of writing we got.
It's so true. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I think when everybody only gets a tiny little bit of screen time in every episode, because there's so many characters, so many plots that we're trying to juggle, it becomes really hard to say, oh, well, I forgive a character like Kelly, because it feels like we've seen her twice since that happens, and then everybody's just okay with it.
I would really like for there to not be boyfriends next season, or if there are, have them be the ones that die. Like they're getting killed off in succession, and the liars have to figure out what's going on.
100%. Are you hearing us, Roberto Aguirre Sacasa? Because we are giving you a freebie here.
So, Mouse, Malia Piles, who has fuck all to do this season, except for read Spooky Spaghetti and say... I saw a supercut on Twitter. I think she says it 35 times over the course of 8 episodes.
Okay, so folks, in case you don't know, Spooky Spaghetti is a new thing. It's a new element for the show in season 2. And it's basically a Reddit for horror people, but it's specific seemingly to the town, and it's mixing creepypastas in. Hence, Spooky Spaghetti.
Yeah, she still has her trans boyfriend, Ash, Jordan Gonzalez, who I really like. He has nothing to do.
Never gets anything to do, yeah. I can't help but wonder, like, the big episode with Mouse, when she gets her final girl test, she's kind of first up. That's when she gets stranded in the Rosie Ricotta, aka Chuck E. Cheese fire.
That to me is like, I'm laughing with the show at that point. Like, yeah, I love it. Because in a lot of like the cartoons that I watch, like, it'll be The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites, or American Dad. I always pay attention to the names of businesses because they're always like punny riffs on actual businesses. So this really worked for me.
Oh, 100%. And it's happening so early in the season. I thought, oh, this is fun. This is smart. Like, they have figured some of this shit out. And it's a solid enough episode. But yeah, like, this is Mouse's big moment. It takes place on her 16th birthday. We should note that she's technically a year-ish younger than all the other girls. And I can't help but wonder if the show feels like it has to treat her with kid gloves as a result. But yeah, like, her relationship with Ash is really interesting because it is a trans actor who is playing what is revealed to be a trans man in character on the show.
Yeah.
Because initially I was like, did we just slyly cast a trans actor and we're just going to say, no, he's a man because he's a fucking man. And I love that this show in season 2 says, you know, she at one point is like, oh, thank God I'm not the only queer person in the group anymore. She's 100% acknowledging Ash's transness. Like, you mentioned the Hell Knight Redemption House bit, and that's like Ash's big moment in this season. And I just kept thinking, what a great character. I love these two together. I love their relationship. Gosh, I wish we just got a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, we have this, like, Mouse has this grandma who is clearly going through some dementia or developing Alzheimer's, but we don't ever really comment on it. Like, we're not like, grandma, or like...
We do, because Mouse definitely recognizes that grandma's like sleepwalking, that she's checking a bunch of shit that she shouldn't because she doesn't know any better. But, like, Mouse has 2 lesbian moms who just fuck off in the first episode to go on a cruise. And even though their daughter was almost immolated in a fire.
Yep.
And they never come back.
Yeah, we couldn't get the actresses back, or we didn't have the material for them. So and I mean, like the grandma's mental state plays into her, because she drops her off at that Rosie Ricotta, like, because she forgot something or whatever the hell. But
no, she was told to go there by Bloody Rose.
Well,
because she thought it was the surprise birthday.
Nevertheless, this seems like something you should tell your grandmother, go to the hospital and get checked out.
Or even just like, let's hire some kind of daytime help, or let's unplug the internet access at home, or just something. And the show never follows through on those little details. Like, it wants to use grandma as, ooh, we're going to use her mental illness or her declining mental state as a plot device, but then they don't follow through on the plot.
Yeah. They do follow through, though, with Farron's arc this season. I think I said she was my MVP, but I think that she has the most compelling arc of the season.
Yeah, I made a joke in one of my recaps that basically Farron's arc, along with Imogen's and also Tabby, is basically Millwood's misogyny.
Very much so. And boy, oh boy, do all the... was Farron's boyfriend Henry this bad back in season 1?
No. So he was definitely a clingy ballet dancer along with her. But yeah, we opened season 2 and she had a debilitating injury that she was recovering from throughout season 1. And he was very supportive, but he wanted her to get back into it because he missed her and so on. But like season 2, he's basically... oh, you kept me stranded in this small town. And then he goes to the church and starts acting all weirdo religious. And he's super belligerent to her when he finds out that, yeah, okay, she lied to him about being recovered, but also she didn't want to go back to ballet. And clearly you were doing something, buddy, where she didn't feel comfortable telling you.
Yeah. So like...
he sucks. I hated this guy.
I cannot believe we don't kill him by season's end.
I know.
Like, or that he would, honestly, I think I would have rather him be Bloody Rose's assistant than Wes, but whatever.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But I did like, though, the bully who eventually, like, she begins dating Greg, played by Elias Kavakis. I really liked their chemistry together.
Oh, 100%. They've got great chemistry. I did like that, you know, in some ways he's kind of the Lexi because he was a shitbag throughout most of season 1, along with Chip, who was Tabby and Imogen's rapist from season 1. So, yeah, Greg is an asshole who ends up coming around. You know, I think the big turning point is at the Pride pool party. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, the boys all have hot bodies and we get to see a fair amount of it because, of course, it's a queer showrunner, but he was looking pretty good in that mesh tank with the sides cut out at the party.
Okay, I don't disagree, but I know these actors are all of legal age, but I always feel really weird
young
because they're playing sophomores in this show.
Yes, yeah, like they're 16 years old.
I was like, okay, I've been seeing Bailey Madison play a teenager for like a decade.
It's hilarious. I love it. But yeah, you're right. They've got good chemistry. We talked a little bit about Farron's test that happens in episode 204, where she has to support a fucking beam for 2 hours. When I saw that clock trace, I thought, oh, okay, she's got to hold this up for 2 minutes. That should be okay.
Yeah. But this is kind of the formula the show gets into, right, though? Because we have teen soap opera for about 50 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes of every episode is a horror set piece involving Bloody Rose. So, like, episodes 1 and 2, we kill people, but then 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're doing, like, the tests or whatever.
Just the test, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It got super repetitive, and I got very frustrated. Like, I recognized that it was a formula, and I think the show thought that it was really working, but as soon as I clocked it, I think it was around episode 4, I just realized, well, fuck, okay, we know that Bloody Rose is now only going to attack in the last 5 minutes of the show, so the rest of it is just going to be them acting like idiots.
Which, again, for me, I was like, cool, this is just like the original series, so, like, I get it. It does seem to go against what the first season did, like, what establishes its formula. So,
yeah.
I didn't hate it, but I was kind of like, oh, like, I just liked more of the horror stuff being integrated into it. Like, you know, we didn't get a great chase scene from last season like we had with Noah, where she's jumping across the rooftops, you know?
Yeah, man, I just kept pinning all my hopes on Noah's test, anticipating that it was going to be equivalent or better than the first season. So Noah is played by Maya Rafiko. I'm going to say, because I saw it online, she got the butt of the fan in quotation mark, hatred this season. And Trace, she's a woman of color and she's revealed to be bisexual this season. And that just felt super icky that people were all of a sudden really coming down on her.
I saw the like worst character of television ever, blah, blah, blah.
What?
And I was seeing this before I started watching the season. So I was like primed for whatever Noah was going to be doing this season. And y'all, she's a teenage girl. It happens.
Yeah.
Like, look, did this guy Sean deserve all this? Not really. But like, again, like she's figuring out her, like, what does she want in her life? And yes, she could have made, honestly, the only thing where I was like, oh girl, you need to back the fuck off is when she was destroying his car, which granted, he kind of had coming because like, he harassed Jen off camera.
Yeah, so Jen is a friend of Noah's from Juvie who shows up. It's very the OC season 2 where it's just like, here's a bunch of new characters you've never seen before. They're all going to become romantically entangled. So that's who Jen is for Noah. And it's kind of fun. I mean, I like Ava Capri because I saw her on, I want to say, the final season of Love, Victor, which was the Love, Simon spinoff.
Okay.
And her character was okay in that show. You know, she's obviously playing a bit more of a hard edge character on Pretty Little Liars. I thought that she has really good chemistry with Rafiko, so I wasn't unhappy with the love triangle element. I will say, though, I think the way the writers did this, I wasn't surprised that people were responding negatively because this did feel the most juvenile of all the storylines. Like, it was very, I'm making very bad decisions. Like, Noah keeps getting involved in petty theft and Jen is obviously lying to her, to the point where when, yes, Noah's boyfriend Sean, who has always been very supportive, but he is a bit of a hothead, like when Noah comes home from one of her shifts and Jen is like, oh yeah, Sean was here and he just punched a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I thought that Jen was lying.
I thought so too.
Because every single episode had said, Jen's a liar. She kind of can't be trusted. Like, Noah's maybe making a bad decision being with this girl.
Right.
And then it's confirmed, oh no, Sean actually did do this. And then it's used as justification to break them up.
Yeah, this was a bad, like, writing. I mean, make me like Jen. Or maybe not like Jen. If I keep her, like, kind of this, like, bad girl that Noah's making a bad decision over, whatever. But the heel turn for both Jen and Sean. And
it was way too fast and way too hard.
Way too fast. Way too fast, way too hard. But again, like, I wasn't, like, screaming at Noah this entire time. Maybe because I just didn't really care that much about her and Sean or her and Jen, like, whatever.
Yeah. It did feel like we were using up a fair amount of screen time, and because it was the only thing that Noah really got to do, that was the piece that was sort of pissing me off, because I like who Noah was as a character in season 1, and it did feel like, oh, she's just going to be the one who's in a love triangle this season. And I get it. It's melodrama, so I can accept it, but it felt like the show wasn't using this actor to her greatest strengths.
I agree, and I think she does the best work though when all the liars are together, because she gets in some of the best one-liners and zingers. Like God.
She and fucking Farron, so funny.
Like, and like no nonsense, like no bullshit. Like, I love that when they were together, but it was just when she was off with her like boyfriend/girlfriend, I was kind of like, ugh, I don't really care about this.
Yeah, and you mentioned how young the character's supposed to be, and obviously, they're all of age, but there is this moment where she and Jen sneak off to Jen's... they say it's Jen's father's, like, McMansion, and he's got a bunch of Rolexes. I was half convinced that she had just, like, broken into his house.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like a grosso old person opportunity to leer at these hot bisexual bodies, because we just immediately put them in the pool. And I thought, oh, no. Are we doing this right now?
Yeah, I mean, but you know what, though? Teens have sex, whatever. At least we weren't seeing their titties or anything.
Well, no, it's not that kind of shit. It's on fucking Max, Trace.
Okay, in the final episode, like, fucking a woman gets her face ripped off.
Sure, but didn't she just... No, she did not deserve it.
No, she didn't deserve it.
She was just mentally ill and unhoused.
Yeah.
Okay, did you have any thoughts about Noah's test before we move on?
I actually did like this because it felt very Saw inspired. I mean, not that Jigsaw would use like fucking roses, but like it felt. I liked this. Although I was kind of like, can you just not run on the roses? But I guess that was like she was supposed to. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, she gets led to a country road that is littered with roses, and initially you think, oh, it's just the petals, but no, it's also the thorns. And then she gets chased by a dog, so her feet get all hacked the fuck up. I did hear a couple of people after my review went out, they were like, oh, I think that this is Mausoleum. This is the homage to Mausoleum. And I was like, I haven't seen it, so I didn't get that. But it just felt, I don't know, a little underwhelming. I thought it was going to move into something else, and instead it's just, oh yeah, she's got to run over thorns.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the homages, though, because I feel like there were a lot more horror movie homages. I mean, like, we're just like recreating scenes from classic horror films in season 1. We only do that. I only caught a couple. Like, the big one is obviously the Mulholland Drive, like, diner scene. Like, we just straight up do that scene.
Which is a wild homage to do in this teen fucking show.
Yeah.
Like, how many viewers of this age would have seen Mulholland Drive?
Okay, but, like, I could say the same thing about a lot of things in season 1 in those homages. But,
that's fair.
But, and then I did catch a Shining homage in the final episode whenever Imogen knocks out Johnny and, like, drags him to the freezer. Like, that's very much, like, right out of The Shining. But I didn't, there may have been others, but nothing really stood out for me. But I just, that Mulholland Drive one, I was like, wow, we're just like doing this scene.
Yeah. See, but it's wild, right? Because again, the unevenness of the writing, there's this moment where, and yes, I'm slightly jumping ahead to Tabby, but Tabby is half-heartedly maybe going to date the new boy who's working at the Orpheum movie theater with her, Christian. And at one point they talk about their favorite vampire movies, and Tabby is like, oh yeah, I've never seen Blackula. And even though the marquee outside tells us that it's a double bill of Fright Night, the original, and The Lost Boys, her favorite vampire horror movie, Trace, is the movie version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I know.
And I was like, okay, this is a choice. And yes, again, she is a 16-year-old girl, but the show is pulling deep cuts like fucking Mulholland Drive homages. And then you've got the cinephile character being like, best vampire film, Buffy the Vampire
like,
Slayer. What the fuck are we doing?
whatever. I guess she gets Friday the 13th Part 2 in her finale too. Like that's what we're doing there. But
100%. Yeah. Were you surprised? So in this Noah chase sequence, that's actually the episode where we have to move because the air conditioning is on the fritz at the Orpheum. So we have to move our Friday the 13th marathon that happens all night. We move it to a campground that we say is deserted and hasn't been used. And then we don't do anything with that set.
I cannot believe that. Like, how are we not having a set piece at this screening?
It was just one of those things where I'm like, this fucking show, why can't you just stay in a lane? Like, I expected the whole next episode would be like taking place at that screening. We were going to have Bloody Rose wreaking havoc or something. And no, the next episode is just, it's a new day. It's a new dawn. Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to Imogen, Bailey Madison. Now,
yes.
I feel like you've been on the record as like saying you struggle with this actress sometimes. So I'm curious, what did you think of her performance this season?
Yeah, there was just something that wasn't really clicking in that first season. She always felt like the one who wasn't really connecting with the material. Mm-hmm. And we've seen Bailey Madison in some other things. As you said, I think she's actually really into this stuff. Like, I know people went gaga for a music video that she released that was very, very horror inspired.
Oh.
But I actually really enjoyed Imogen's arc this season. Mm-hmm. So I think partially it was that because she wasn't pregnant, we could actually do some things with her.
Now, I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, but like, so because she gets the most to do with Dr. Sullivan, played by Annabeth Gish. And Dr. Sullivan is a returning character from the original series.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so she was in 9 episodes of like the 100+ episodes. She was like obviously a therapist, but so there's an episode where they go through her files. She has files on all the original liars in her file folder. So again, like those Easter eggs. We're like, I know those names. Like that's who that is. Like blah 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 blah. But none of this stuff with Archie was obviously a part of the original series.
Right. Yeah. The only sort of callback that I got was when Dr. Sullivan eventually confesses that she did have this son and they lived in
Rosewood.
There we go. Rosewood. Yeah.
Because so Ravenswood is one of the towns, but it's like they tried to make a spinoff called Ravenswood, but it lasted for 1 season and got canceled.
Yeah. So I got that. And I knew that Imogen had originally given her baby up to adoption to 2 of the characters from the original Pretty Little Liars because the actors apparently were very sad that didn't take in the new show.
Okay, so that's actually yes, you're 100% correct. The character she was going to give them to was Lucy Hale's character and her like new husband. But the thing is, that was one of the most controversial parts of the original show because Lucy Hale's boyfriend was her teacher. And they are endgame for the original series. And so in the end of season 1, where she's like, oh, I'm giving it up to this people named Ari and Ezra, and people are like, ew, like, no, don't. And so in the first episode of the season, she says, oh, that Ezra guy gave me like a creepy vibe. And so that was very much like a pointed. I feel like that was a reaction to fans not liking the fact that that's how the baby ended up last season.
You know what? Smart pivot. Yeah. And instead we just give it up to 2 gay dudes that show up one other time somewhere in the season for like a really stupid. I did not like that part where she's like, there's someone in the house and I'm going wild, whatever.
Yeah, but I she had so much agency this season. I loved her like going toe to toe with Dr. Sullivan. Like good for Bailey Madison. Like this I think was an improvement over last season, and I really liked Imogen's arc, just like you.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I ended up not liking about what happens with her character this season. So she is dating this guy, Johnny, played by Antonio Cibriano at the ice cream shop. And I liked their chemistry. They get off on a rocky foot because he's a player. She calls him out on it, blah, blah, blah. It's all good stuff. But in the finale, she mistakenly thinks that he is Bloody Rose or Bloody Rose's assistant or accomplice because she finds bodies in the freezer. And you're like, it's so obviously not him. And then she goes wild trying to swing a wrench at him. She eventually knocks him out. This is your Shining that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because of all of this, at the end of the episode, it's revealed that they're taking a break, i.e. they're no longer together and he's out like trying to mac on other women. And it kind of pissed me off because I liked their chemistry. I felt like we had invested a lot of work into trying to set them up as a fucking couple. And then it's like, okay. I mean, yeah, it would be hard to date after you hit somebody that you liked in the head. But also, just get over it.
I agree. They had good chemistry, but here's the thing. The entire season, I was like, bitch, you don't need to be dating anybody right now.
No, none of these girls should be dating anybody.
None of them should. But like, but also like, I bought into Imogen like whacking him over the head because like, she is mentally unstable. Oh, also loved her phone call to Dr. Sullivan where she's like, oh my God, my trauma's back. And then she like stops.
Yeah. And all the other girls are like, holy fucking shit, that was great, but also you're scary.
It's so good. But no, I was like, girl, you need to not date anyone. No. When they all decide to end therapy, I was like, no!
Therapy for all of you. For like, they end therapy in part because they think it might be Dr. Sullivan, which, you know, yeah, the show is actually really good at setting up red herrings in the Dr. Sullivan character, not so much anybody else, because it feels like it could just be anybody. But it makes sense that they would say, oh, Dr. Sullivan could be bad, so we're not going to do therapy with her. But it's like, okay, but you got to find a new therapist then, because all of you need to be getting therapy.
Yeah, but like in the final episode, you know, Sullivan's even like, okay, do you want to continue therapy or do you want to like stop it? And they're like, we're good. No. We think we're good. And I was like, no, you are not.
Sidebar. I do want to give it. I don't think Annabeth Gish really got a lot to do. Like, I love Annabeth Gish, so I was happy that she was here, but the character didn't really pop in a lot of scenes. Mm-hmm. I did love when she was talking to her publisher in that final episode, and she's just like, oh yeah, these girls, they're all fucking narcissists. Dude, I can totally get them to sign the contract to publish this book.
I was so mad that we killed her because I was like, I like this side of Dr. Sullivan,
where is
please.
this energy? Also, bring that back.
Okay, I'm sorry. Her publicist was like, oh, your book about teen trauma is a masterpiece. We're rushing it to a Christmas release. And I was like, no. You sound very excited about this subject matter.
Mm-hmm. Also, yes, because nothing sells like hotcakes like teen trauma at Christmas. Also, you cannot publish a physical book from 1 year to the next. Like, the turnaround time on physical publications is like 2 years minimum.
Okay, all right. So we can talk about like what we think for next season if we get one is going to happen. But let's talk about then this killer reveal, right? Because Tabby is our final girl test doing Friday the 13th Part 2.
Also, I didn't like it when they kept saying, "Oh, she's the final girl." I was like, "What are we doing?"
I know. So. Okay, I did see people complaining about the killer reveals. I don't mind Mrs. Langsbury.
Fine.
It's not
that they're not surprising, I think, is the problem.
I agree. They're not surprising. I really wanted a better death for Mrs. Langsbury because, good Lord, I get...
Trace, neither one of them died. They're both alive, we say at the end.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God,
even Wes.
Wes had a pitchfork shoved through his heart and then Imogen punched him.
Mm-hmm. And then we say, oh, they're both alive. And you're just like... No, they're absolutely... Maybe Mrs. Langsbury, but not Wes.
Langsbury gets drop-kicked by Farron, which is, by the way,
amazing.
Awesome. It's really good.
I cheered. I fully cheered.
Okay, so yeah, we're doing Scream 2 here, but we're also doing like the Kevin Williamson's unused plot for Scream 3, which would be adapted to the following, where it's like, the killers have like a cult of the spooky spaghetti cult around them helping them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the problem is that none of these cultists are people we have ever met before. Like, presumably they're all members of Kelly's church, which we have been sort of sidelining and then just bringing in whenever we need a peripheral antagonist throughout the season. And it kind of works, right? Because we don't ultimately need to know who these people are. It's just scary to see Tabby getting chased by a bunch of men and then also getting her to access her agency and also her kickboxing skills because she just starts taking these motherfuckers out.
Oh, well, they all were taking kickboxing classes in episode 1 that we never see them take again. But
yeah, we just stopped that as soon as we have a confirmed killer after us.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Mrs. Langsbury stuff makes a lot of sense. And, you know, she's getting revenge for her son because, again, she doesn't believe that her son Chip was a rapist, which, good Lord.
I know, but honestly, feels true to life.
It does feel true to life. Wes, however, this was weird.
Oh, really? You didn't buy this? I saw this coming. I don't want to say I saw this coming a mile away, but as soon as he took off the mask, I was like, oh, of course. That's why we were doing all the white incel bullshit earlier.
100. No, I get it. I was thinking, did we like Wes last season? Was he a good guy?
He was always a little bit smarmy, but it was one of those, he was balancing out Chip because Chip seems so nice. And then, of course, as soon as Chip was revealed to be bad, you're like, oh, okay, that's how we were using Wes.
Yeah, but I did like the whole where he's like, it's really hard for a cis white guy to get movies made. They don't just open the doors for us anymore.
Here's the thing. I like that the first time when he butted up against Tabby when she revealed that her short had been accepted to this film festival. And then we just repeat it almost ad nauseum when he does his killer monologue. And I was just like, is this for the people who missed it the first time?
Oh,
no.
Again, sometimes this show thinks the audience is very stupid. And I do think that's because Aguirre Sacasa went to the Ryan Murphy School of Screenwriting and showrunning. So it's just like, but it's like, let's do it for, because he didn't, I didn't watch The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but did that also have similar issues?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And we should note, it's not just him. This is also Lindsay Calhoun Bring. And I think that they're partners. Like they work together quite often. Sorry, professional partners, not romantic, because
he's gay.
He's a big old mo. He's the guy who did...
I know what you're about to say. Talented at Sundown.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought this was fine. I actually did quite like the finale, and I don't mind that the killers, because the thing is, like, with the original series, and you had like 22 episode seasons, and there were 7 seasons, and like there were like 3 different A reveals, but like there were so many red herrings. There were there were fan theories up the wazoo with that original show. Like, I was there for that, and it was a really fun community to be a part of. And you don't, because it seems like what we're doing now is we're doing like a killer a season. We don't have that. And so, and it's also only 8 episodes. So I don't know. Like, I get that we have so many characters because we have to make them red herrings, but that's like, like if you're gonna do that, you maybe gotta make your killers a little bit less predictable.
Yeah, or just dial it back, right? I mean, I like the idea of doing a new killer every season, but also it's going to be a little ridiculous if they just keep getting targeted like every fucking year. You mentioned that they're doing Scream 2. I called it with Wes because he has a very Mickey style motivation where he's filming it. He wants to use that as his springboard to popularity. And then I only realized after the fact that, Miss Langsbury is basically Mrs. Loomis.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing where if you're going to do that, then I think you can just streamline the plotting a little bit. Like, recognize that this is more melodrama than horror, and say, okay, we're gonna slip in a couple of clues or a little bit of murder every once in a while, but like focus on the actual relationships and let them breathe. Because I think my biggest problem is that we're trying to do both of those shows and we're not giving enough time to either of them. So everything just feels super rushed. And then when you get to something like a killer reveal, it's like, well, you didn't really give, like, they're so obvious, but they're also all red herrings. Like, it could have been anyone under those masks and I would have accepted it because the show had not given me any kind of definitive clues ever.
That's the thing, is I feel like in a show like this too, it's like, okay, anyone under those masks, anyone would be saying, well, that's really obvious, because there were so many reasons for so many of these characters to be the killers.
Yeah. And I think the show thought it was being savvy by prolonging that mystery. I think it would actually be better if they just revealed who the killer is and then have us like get to watch how it unfolds.
Well, so speaking of then, like, given the tease we get at the end of this episode, where Archie as A comes back and murders Dr. Sullivan, which poor Annabeth Gish.
Bummer.
So does that mean, okay, so we're going to have A back as next season? So there's not really a mystery there. I mean, I'm sure they'll make a mystery, but like, is it going to be a whodunit mystery,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would appreciate it if they find a new way to do it, because the danger here is that we just revert back to kind of what that end of last season, first episode of this season was like, where the girls are just terrified all the time. And I don't think that that's going to make for a great show, but I also don't want to see them just trying to live their life and like, every once in a while, somebody from their life just gets murdered and they don't really recognize that.
Well, and I saw some, I don't know how reputable a source it was, I can't remember what it was, but like saying that like, Max trademarked the term Pretty Little Liars scene stealer. So assuming if we get a season 3 of this show, that is what it's going to be called, which my gut was like, okay, cool. So then we're going to make a movie about the events, which we know someone is doing.
Right. And did you miss a trace? It's Ari Aster is making it with Sydney Sweeney and Emma Roberts.
I was like, in this climate?
Also, I was just like, that's not even the right combination to make it funny, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Ari Aster would never make a movie like this, which is maybe the joke, But if he did, he would also never cast those actors, which, like, it's too many. No, that doesn't work to make the joke work.
I think he might cast Sydney Sweeney, but I don't know about Emma Roberts. I was thinking Emma Roberts, whatever. But yeah, so I think then we're going to be on the set of that film, which again, I'm really excited by that premise. Whether the show can live up to it, we'll see. But yeah, they whitewashed the heck out of that cast. None of the people of color are in that movie.
Of course not. No, that's the joke.
Yeah, absolutely. But
the racist joke. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, again, I enjoyed this about as much as I did season 1. It is not a perfect show. As I said, it is the B- of B-. But I'll watch season 3.
Yeah, I like this season better than I like season 1. I think they can continue to refine it, polish it up, make it a little bit better. This cast is really solid. I enjoy watching these actors. It's, for me, still just the writing that's letting it down. Maybe I need to let it go. Maybe this is just what the show is. But I would love to see them just let everything breathe a little bit more in a season 3. But, you know, as a diversion in the summer, like when there isn't as much TV to watch, like, this is fun. I don't mind this. I would enjoy watching it again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, everyone, let us know what your thoughts were on Pretty Little Liars Summer School. Oh, which, by the way, you'll notice we didn't talk about Summer School that much because it doesn't
matter.
It really doesn't matter. I mean, they passed their test at the end, so yay.
Yeah, like, again, you have so little screen time and we used up a bunch of it to do this bullshit. Like, that's the kind of thing that you get rid of it.
Yeah, like, why are they even, like, what? Yeah. Why even be in Summer School? Just have it just be called Summer. Or just keep it original sin. I don't give a shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, everyone. Well, let us know your thoughts on this season. Do you agree with us? Are you higher or lower on it than us? But
there we go.
Until next time, we can cross out Pretty Little Liars Summer School.
Indeed. And cross out microqueers.